They always say rivers carry more than just water. They carry secrets, grief, sometimes things we were never meant to see. I was 24 when I first saw her, the woman across the river. That spring, the rains came down heavy and the ground stayed wet for weeks. The river behind our cottage swelled fat and fast, roaring like it had something to say. My husband Dan had gone out west looking for railroad work, and I stayed behind with his mother, old and mostly blind, and the baby. The only way to keep our linens clean, our diapers, our clothes, our lives, was to drag everything down the water's edge and scrub them by hand, like we'd always done. Every morning I'd carry my wash tub and soap out to the flat rock near the bend. You couldn't see much past the far bank, only trees, thick like walls, and the mist curling up from the water in long, white fingers. The air smelled of mud and something else, something sweet and rotting, like flowers left too long in the sun. It was quiet out there, peaceful mostly, but lonely too. You'd get to thinking when the birds went quiet and the wind died that maybe you weren't alone. And one morning, I wasn't. I'd just finished beating the linens when I looked up and saw her, standing across the river, half concealed in the trees. Her dress was old-fashioned, even for 1900, white, though it looked gray from the damp, and too thin for the cold spring air. Her hair was long, black, and wet, hanging over her shoulders like curtains. And she didn't move, didn't blink. She just stared. I froze, thought maybe I'd imagined her. But when I blinked, she was still there, still watching. I called out, "Hello, are you all right?" She didn't answer. I gathered my things and left fast that day. Didn't tell anyone. Thought maybe it was someone from town, maybe lost or wandering. But there was something about her, something off. She didn't move like a person. She didn't seem real. The next morning, she was gone. Days passed, no sign of her. I told myself it was just a trick of the light, or my own tired mind playing games. Then things started happening. It began small. My wash tub shifted from where I'd left it. Soap missing. Water colder than it had any right to be, biting through my skin even in the sun. I'd find footprints, bare and deep, in the mud near the water, but never mine. Never facing the right direction, always facing me. I started to dream of her, standing across the river, always watching. In the dreams, her eyes were hollow, her mouth full of water. Then one morning, she was back. Same place, same stillness. Her dress clung to her like skin, soaked and sagging. But this time she was closer. The river wasn't as wide as I remembered. Or maybe she'd moved. I didn't say anything to her, just watched. Then she smiled. I dropped everything and ran. Back to the house, I tried to tell Dan's mother, but she just patted my hand and said the river sometimes got into people's heads, especially women alone. But I wasn't alone, not anymore. The next day I stayed inside, and the next, but the linens piled up and the baby's clothes began to stink, and I couldn't keep away forever. So I went back. The morning was still and gray. Fog sat on the water like a second skin. I told myself I'd be fast, just enough to get a wash in and come back home before the baby woke. But the river had other plans. I knelt to rinse a sheet, and when I looked up, she was right there. Across the river, closer than ever. I could see her eyes now, black and bottomless. Her mouth opened, and then she stepped forward, but not onto land, onto the water. It didn't hold her like it should have. Her feet sank just below the surface, but she kept moving, one step at a time, toward me. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. The water around her rippled, but she didn't sink. Her dress dragged behind her like a tail. Her arms rose, palms open. I turned to run, but the bank, wet from the rain, gave way. I slipped, tumbled into the current. The water was so cold it felt like knives stabbing every part of me. My lungs filled before I could scream. The river grabbed me, pulled me under, twisted me like cloth. Then something grabbed my ankle. I kicked, thrashed, but it held fast. I opened my eyes underwater and saw her face, right there, lips moving, bubbles spilling out, like she was singing to me. Her hands wrapped around my legs, dragging me down. And then, light. A branch caught my arm. I grabbed it and pulled, scraped, clawed my way to the surface. The cold tore the breath from me, but I crawled up the mud bank, gasping, choking, sobbing. When I looked back, she was gone. The river was calm again, silent, as if nothing had happened. I never went back. Not once, not even when the clothes piled so high they stank through the walls. I paid the neighbor girl a penny to fetch water from the well. I let the baby run bare. I stayed far from the window that faced the river. But sometimes in the middle of the night, I hear her voice in the distance, soft and slow, like a lullaby drowned in weeds. And I know she's still waiting for me to come back. But I won't. God help me, I won't. Nestled at the base of a towering mountain range lay our quaint village, a place where everyone knew each other's names and secrets were scarce. My husband Tom was the village's esteemed woodcutter, a man whose strength was matched only by his kindness. Our days were simple, filled with shared laughter and the comforting routines of rural life. The dense forest that bordered our home was both Tom's workplace and our source of warmth during the harsh winters. One crisp morning, as the first snowflakes began their descent, Tom prepared for a routine trip into the woods. He kissed my forehead, his lips lingering as if to savor the moment. "I'll be back before dusk," he promised, his eyes reflecting the soft glow of the dawn. I watched from our doorstep as he disappeared into the embrace of the trees, his silhouette swallowed by the forest's depths. Dusk arrived, painting the sky in hues of crimson and indigo. Yet there was no sign of Tom. Concern gnawed at the edges of my mind, but I reassured myself. Perhaps he had ventured deeper than usual, or maybe he was delayed by the snowfall. As hours slipped by and night tightened its grip, my anxiety intensified. It was already 6 p.m. when, grabbing my phone, I dialed his number, the ringing echoing in my ears like a lifeline. After what felt like an eternity, the call connected. But instead of Tom's familiar voice, a chilling, guttural whisper greeted me. The words were foreign, the tone menacing. Just as I was about to end the call, a phrase in clear, deliberate English sent shivers down my spine. "Come alone." Panic surged through me. Every instinct screamed to seek help, to rally the villagers. Yet an inexplicable force compelled me to obey the mysterious directive. Donning my heaviest coat and boots, I ventured into the night, the snow crunching beneath my hurried steps. The forest was unrecognizable under its blanket of snow, each tree a monolithic sentinel casting elongated shadows. The path Tom often took was obscured, leaving me to rely on intuition and the faint hope of finding footprints. The deeper I went, the more the woods seemed to close in, the silence oppressive, broken only by the occasional snap of a twig. Time became elusive. The cold gnawed at my extremities, and fatigue weighed heavy on my limbs. Just as despair threatened to overtake me, a flicker of light pierced the darkness. A cabin, nestled amidst the trees, its windows aglow with an inviting warmth. Desperation overshadowed caution as I approached and knocked. The door creaked open, revealing a woman seated by the hearth. Her features were obscured by the dim light, but her presence was commanding. She spoke in a tongue unfamiliar to me, her voice melodic yet unsettling. Despite the language barrier, her gestures invited me in. The warmth was intoxicating, and for a moment I felt a semblance of safety. But that moment was gone quickly, and fear crawled up my spine. As the minutes passed, more unease coiled in my stomach. The woman's eyes never left me, their intensity piercing. Suddenly she began chanting, the cadence rhythmic and hypnotic. Fear erupted within me. I bolted from the cabin, the cold night air a stark contrast to the oppressive heat inside. Blinded by snow and panic, I stumbled through the forest, my breath ragged. The ground beneath me gave way, and I plummeted into darkness. Pain exploded as I hit the bottom, and consciousness slipped from my grasp. I just fell into a hole in the ground, and suddenly everything around me turned black. Warmth enveloped me as I awoke, the familiar scent of home filling my senses. I was in our bed, the morning sun casting gentle rays across the room. Tom sat beside me, concern etching lines on his face. "You were thrashing in your sleep," he murmured, brushing damp hair from my forehead. A nightmare? Confusion clouded my thoughts. The memories were vivid, yet the absence of any physical evidence, no bruises, no signs of my nocturnal journey, suggested otherwise. Tom's presence was grounding, his explanations logical. Perhaps it had all been a figment of my imagination. Days passed and normalcy resumed. Yet an unshakable feeling of being watched lingered. One afternoon, as I tended to our garden, that sensation intensified. Glancing toward the edge of our property where the forest began, I saw her, the woman from the cabin. She stood motionless among the firs, her gaze locked onto mine. Slowly, she raised her hand, beckoning. Terror rooted me momentarily before instinct took over, and I fled into the safety of our home. When I dared to look again, she was gone, leaving only the whispering trees in her wake. That was the first and last time I saw her. To this day, I grapple with the nature of that night. Was it truly a nightmare born of worry and exhaustion, or was it something else, something far more insidious? Tom insists it was a dream. He jokes about it sometimes, lightheartedly, as though I imagined the entire thing. "You and your wild mind," he says. "You should write a book about it." Sometimes I laugh with him. Sometimes I pretend I believe it too. But I can still feel the cold from that night, bone deep and aching. I still remember the crunch of snow under my boots, the way the wind whispered my name between the trees. I remember her face, pale and sharp, framed by tangled black hair and eyes like burnout stars. Her voice, even though I could not understand the words, echoes still in the back of my mind, speaking in riddles I fear I'll one day comprehend. And then there's the small things. The way the front gate creaks open some nights when there's no wind, or the way the fire in the hearth dims for a moment as if something passes by. Tom never seems to notice, but I do. And then there's the latest sign. A few weeks ago, I was in the garden, pruning dead growth before spring. My fingers brushed the dirt near the tree line and struck something hard. I dug it out. A wooden charm, weathered, carved with the same strange symbols I saw in the cabin. Tied around it was a wisp of black hair. I didn't tell Tom. I buried it again, deeper this time. But that night, I dreamed of her standing over our bed, smiling. I don't go near the woods anymore. Tom thinks it's because I'm still shaken by that winter. He says I'm delicate, that I need rest, that the mountain took something from me that night. He's not wrong, because every now and then, when the air is heavy and the world goes quiet, I swear I can still hear her voice through the trees. And each time it's a little clearer. She is waiting, and one day I fear I might answer her call. Do you know what happens to little girls who leave their toes uncovered? The summer of 1984 was supposed to be the best of her life. 9-year-old Lisa Jackson had dreamed of sun-drenched afternoons at the lake, sleepovers with her best friend Katie, and popsicles that melted too fast in the heat. But the moment Dr. Weiss fastened those metallic braces onto her teeth, everything changed. The kids at school called her tinsel teeth, robot mouth, and worst of all, metal mouth monster. Even Katie giggled along with them. Lisa tried to laugh it off, but the jokes stung. Every time she opened her mouth, she felt like some hideous alien. The first night with her new braces, Lisa tossed and turned in bed, the dull ache in her gums making sleep impossible. The moonlight spilled through her window, painting silver lines across her bedroom wall. She had just begun to drift off when she heard it. A whisper, close, yet distant, curling around her ears like a breath from the dark. Do you know what happens to little girls who leave their toes uncovered? The voice was low, deliberate, with a rasping edge, like wind through dead leaves. Lisa's breath hitched. She pulled her blanket tighter around her feet. A monster comes in the night, the whisper continued. One by one, it plucks their toes right off. The first one stings, the second burns, the third is the worst, because by then, they know they can't escape. Lisa clenched her eyes shut, heart hammering. It was just a dream, just her imagination. And yet, a wet slurping sound filled her ears. Then the sensation, something rough, warm, dragging across her foot. A jolt of pain, flinging herself upright in bed. Panting, she threw off the blankets. Her toes were all there. No blood, no monster. Just her mind playing tricks on her. Or so she thought. The next night, Lisa hesitated before bed. She tried to tell her parents about the voice, but they dismissed it as nerves about her braces. You'll get used to them, honey, her mother said, brushing her hair back. The first week is always the hardest. Lisa wasn't so sure. That night, the voice returned. Run, little girl, run fast, but you can't run forever. Lisa found herself deep in a dense forest, barefoot, the damp leaves cold against her skin. Behind her, a terrible cackling filled the air. She turned, and there it was. A witch with tangled hair, black as a storm cloud, her bony fingers gripping a bough. An arrow sliced through the air. Pain erupted in Lisa's back. She gasped, falling forward, her hands sinking into the mud. The witch loomed closer, her teeth gleaming like shattered glass. Another arrow came, this time straight for her throat. Lisa woke up with a scream, her body drenched in sweat. The pain in her back was gone, but the terror lingered. Something was wrong, something was deeply, terribly wrong. Each night brought new horrors. A faceless man standing at the foot of her bed, whispering in a voice full of static. A shadow with too many arms creeping across her walls. The sensation of sharp teeth nibbling at her thighs, her limbs frozen, unable to fight back. Lisa barely slept. Dark circles rimmed her eyes. She nodded off in class, her body running on fumes. Her teacher, Mrs. Donnelly, pulled her aside. "Lisa, sweetheart, are you feeling okay? You look exhausted." Lisa hesitated. Would anyone believe her? Would they laugh at her the way the other kids did? "I'm fine," she whispered, but she wasn't. On the sixth night, the worst nightmare came. Lisa lay in bed, waiting for the whispers. They came as they always did, but this time the voice was different, hungrier, more eager. "Aha, you've lasted longer than most," it cooed. "But you can't resist forever." A low growl rumbled through the room. A shadow rose from the foot of her bed, stretching, shifting, forming into something with glowing yellow eyes and jagged teeth. A creature, not quite a wolf, not quite a man, tilted its head, its long tongue flicking across its lips. It pounced. Pain tore through Lisa's legs. She thrashed, but she couldn't move, couldn't scream. The monster's teeth scraped against her skin, biting, tasting. "No," she gasped, tears streaming down her face. "No, please." Her hands shot up to her mouth, fingers curling around the cold metal in her mouth. Instinct took over. She yanked. A sharp electric pain exploded through her skull. Metal clattered against the floor. Silence. The creature was gone. The whispering had stopped. Lisa sat in the darkness, trembling. She touched her gums, tender, raw, bleeding. But she didn't care. The nightmares were over. The next morning, her parents were horrified. They rushed her to Dr. Weiss, who scolded her for removing the braces but agreed to fit her for a new set the following week. Lisa never went back. Somewhere deep down, she knew the braces weren't just metal. They were something more, an antenna, a receiver, tuned to a frequency no child should ever hear. The horror show, a station broadcasting bedtime stories no one should listen to. And she had been its latest listener. To this day, Lisa refuses to wear anything metal in her mouth. She avoids radios, especially old ones with static field frequencies. And sometimes late at night, when the wind howls through the trees, she swears she can hear it, the whisper, still searching for another child to listen.